Wii Sports is one of the most important games ever made, and if you think that's an exaggeration, are you kidding me? Not only is it the best-selling Nintendo game of all time, but it is also one of the best-selling video games, period, right behind Tetris. You could say that that's only because it was a pack-in title that was included with nearly every Wii sold, but I beg to differ. I think Wii Sports is what made the Wii. Alright, let's back up. Before 2006, motion controls were already a tired idea. For decades, people were always trying to find the perfect way to get players off the couch and feel like they were more immersed in the game. But the reason it never really stuck is because motion controls are an extremely novel concept. Sure, being able to actually punch Mike Tyson in Punch-Out is awesome, but how many games can you make before that novelty wears off, and all you're left with is a hunk of plastic that takes up space somewhere deep in your attic? In turn, these ideas were only ever attempted as one-off products from companies that already had very little to lose if they failed, which most of the time they did anyways. No one was really willing to step up to the plate and make their whole brand about motion controls. That is, until Nintendo did exactly that. To claim that the Wii was a risk would be an insane understatement. Who is to say that it wouldn't have failed just as hard as something like the Virtual Boy? But Nintendo said screw it, who cares? We're all in. And to drive the point home further and prove that the Wii was more than just another novelty, they made Wii Sports and included it as a free game that came bundled with the console. And wow, it was the perfect demo in every conceivable way. It showed off all the motion control capabilities that both developers and gamers now had at their disposal. It proved that the system could also be used for things like fitness. It was genuinely just a good game, and most importantly, it broke into mainstream audiences. Everyone knows sports, whether you're a gamer or not, and when it came to learning the controls, you didn't really have to. You want to play tennis? Okay, just serve the ball and start rallying. You want to play baseball? Okay, just start pitching. I even remember seeing headlines about how elderly people would play it in nursing homes to keep active. Everything about it was completely intuitive, and it paved the way for motion controls to finally see success. And, not resting on their laurels, Nintendo doubled down and later made a direct sequel, Wii Sports Resort, which was once again used as a way to promote the console, but more specifically their newly improved Motion Plus technology, which made motion tracking even more accurate. And talk about a follow-up! It was arguably better than the original, with an expansion of new and exciting content, all of which showed off Nintendo's impressive updated hardware. But alas, the series would then experience a lull. There was a sort of HD remake of Wii Sports for the Wii U called Wii Sports Club, but not only did that console sell terribly on its own, but the game itself was also apparently not very good to say the least. And so, Wii Sports remained dormant for nearly a decade, a legend of its time, seemingly never to be resurrected. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. When I first saw this, I wasn't too excited. The Wii Sports games hold a very special place in the hearts of millions of people, myself included, and the idea that a new and underwhelming entry into the series could tarnish its legacy worried me. Plus, by now, motion control sports games are an old fad, one that has been done to death both by Nintendo themselves and their direct competitors. How was this one going to be any different? Granted, Nintendo has continued to create fun and innovative games that promote exercise and fitness, most notably the recent Ring Fit Adventure, but when it comes to going back to the basics of bowling and tennis, it's hard to feel like anything new and inspired is going to come. Clearly, the cards are completely stacked against Nintendo Switch Sports, but regardless, is it good? Well, let's get into it. Alright, here we are. I'm excited and a little nervous at the same time. Let's start by making our character, or sportsmate as they are apparently called. I can't say I'm a huge fan of these, especially since so much of Wii Sports' charm was based on the aesthetics of the Mii characters. These look more like Xbox 360 avatars than anything. Wait, hold on, I can still use a Mii? I almost forgot the Switch still has them. Honestly, at this point, let's just use the new stuff. I will say that I very much appreciate the lack of pointless gender identity options. Very progressive. Seriously, good job, Nintendo. Alright, enough with that. Let's get to the actual game. Huh? 6 sports? Excuse me? The first game had 5 and that was free. At least the second game justified its price tag by over doubling the content. I paid $50 for 6 sports? Oh, this is not a good start. But hey, at least this menu music is actually pretty good. Wii Sports has always had iconic and catchy songs so it's nice to see that this game matches up to that. Anyways, let's start with Volleyball. This is your standard game of bumps, sets, spikes, blocks, and dives. While that all sounds like a lot, everything happens in a predetermined sequence, so there isn't much of a choice as to how points actually play out. Plus, the ball moves pretty slowly, making everything a bit boring. Still, somehow this one grew on me a little. The motion controls are pretty good. The better you time your hits, the better your shots will be. And I do appreciate that you can actually control your movement while waiting to return the ball, even if that only goes so far, especially since you pretty much always know you will have to return a spike, so if you're at the baseline, it's a total guessing game of where to stand. Here's to hoping that your teammate does a good job of blocking. Also, you can't really hit the ball out. Believe me, I've tried. Why not? That seems like such a weird feature to not include. Yeah, this is just fine. C tier. Next up, Badminton. Now, I'm a sucker for a good racket sport, and the Wii Sports series has never shied away from including as many as possible. And you know what? This is definitely as good as its predecessors. It has a decent amount of depth with one-to-one motion tracking that makes aiming your shots actually possible, and more importantly, the ability to drop shot, which is super key, especially when you're able to make your opponent fall over. Then you could just slam the birdie down in their face. And I do like that you have slight movement control based on which way you hold your racket. However, again, I can't seem to hit the shuttlecock out no matter what I do. Losing a point in tennis or table tennis by hitting too far left or right was always totally possible, so why is that gone? Regardless, this is fun and quickly gets intense. A tier. Next, we have bowling. I would be willing to say that this is the most iconic sport in the entire series, so this one has a lot to live up to. And sadly, it falls a little flat. You know how in the original game you would only ever let go of the ball once you let go of the B button? Makes sense. You would expect the same to be true here as well, right? Nope, your character lets go when their animation tells them to. In turn, you now need to time your throws accordingly, not based on when you actually want to throw the ball, which feels infinitely less accurate. What's super infuriating is that the game will tell me that I threw it incorrectly when, in reality, I didn't. It's rolling right there. It's not the worst thing to get used to, but it's annoying that you have to at all. It just feels way less natural. Also, it starts you not in the middle of the lane, but to the right, which, to be fair, is typically where I go anyways, but that removes the challenge of perfectly placing yourself in that spot every time. Other than all of that, though, it's bowling. I do like that local multiplayer no longer requires everyone to wait for people to finish their turn. Everybody just goes at the same time, and this is a huge quality of life boost. Plus, there is an obstacle mode, which is a nice return from previous games, and that does add some fun challenge, but it's not really anything to get too excited about. I'm a little bummed they didn't bring back the 100-pin challenge. I mean, come on, that was so fun. You can't even cause background characters to jump up and spin when you let go of the ball behind you. Whatever. B tier. Next. Okay, soccer. Let's start with the standard 4v4. What the hell is this? Okay, let's just call it like it is. This is a shameless ripoff of Rocket League. No question. Sprinting uses up stamina, the ball is oversized, the field has rounded corners and walls, the goal includes a force field that the ball needs to pass through fully to qualify as a point, there are different goal animations that you can equip, and you can even jump forward, except here it's this dumb headbutt move. I mean, my god, this is bullshit. However, with all that said, I do love Rocket League, and this isn't the worst clone out there, and this by far has the most depth out of everything here, almost exclusively because you can actually fully control your movement. I'm so confused. If they put it in this, why didn't they just put it in every other sport? Even with that said though, moving in this game is so slow, and the ball changes hands so fast, which makes it even worse. This is once again just boring, with 90% of the time just being running back and forth to the ball at a snail's pace. Plus, you can only play with a max of 2 players. What? This would have been so much better if at the very least you could have a full set of 4 local people on one team. Well, at least the matches are short. I will say though, 1v1s are pretty entertaining, mostly because the field is smaller, meaning it takes less time to run to the ball. But even then, if you really want a good soccer game on your Switch, just wait a month for the new Mario Strikers game. Honestly. I guess this is also the part where I have to talk about Shootout Mode. Okay, let's strap the Joy-Con to my leg. There we go. Wow, look at me, a model athlete. And now that I'm finally ready, let me show you an even more boring version of soccer. This mode is literally just you 20 feet away from the goal, kicking it in as many times as you can successfully. That's it. Granted, this is actually somewhat difficult, mostly because getting the timing down is kind of tough. And you know what? If this was intended as a way to practice, I would say fine. But there's already a separate practice mode. There isn't even a goalie to add any level of unpredictable challenge. D tier. Moving on. Chambara? What the hell is that? Oh, this is just swordplay from Wii Sports Resort. But what was wrong with that name? Anyways, this was always my favorite sport out of the entire series, so this better deliver. And you know what? It actually does! The gameplay is fun and engaging, it allows for a lot of strategy, and winning genuinely feels rewarding. I even like the different sword types you can pick. They give the game a good amount of variety. However, the matches are way too short. First to 2 points? Are you kidding me? I know that this is the same length as before, but this was the perfect opportunity to fix that, and they didn't. Also, what happened to Showdown Mode? Where's Speed Slice? Still, this is great and definitely the best of the bunch. S tier. Lastly, we have tennis, probably the second most iconic sport in the series. And this time, thankfully, they didn't screw it up. The addition of different types of shots like slice, topspin, lobs, and smashes makes for a way more engaging game. Again, I feel like it would have been perfect had they just allowed you to move with a control stick, and yes, apparently you can vaguely move in the direction of your racket here too, but it still just isn't enough. Other than that, not too much else to say. It's tennis. At least you can still hit the ball out in this one. A tier. Well, those are all the sports. Turning up the CPU difficulty to the max does add a level of challenge, but not for very long. However, Wii Sports has always at its core been a party game, so I took some time to experience it with a few friends. But I'm gonna be honest, it didn't really change much. Sure, playing against real people does make everything less predictable than against AI, but if the games themselves are lackluster, you're working with a short leash. I guess the only thing left to do is go online, but playing with randos is even lamer than playing with people in person. Eventually, if you play enough online games, you can ascend to the Pro League, which is this game's equivalent to the Pro level from the previous titles. This includes a decent ranking system, but there isn't enough depth here to make me really want to be global elite in volleyball. The game also doesn't have a graph that actually tells you how close you are to getting to Pro like before, so you just have to keep playing until it tells you, which is a bit annoying. The only other reason to play online is that it gives you points towards unlocking cosmetic items. But not only do I not really care about that, even if I did, it takes a decent amount of time to unlock stuff, or at least more than I'm willing to put into this. Well, that's it. That's the whole game. Aside from a cute little tennis minigame hidden in the end credits, which I will admit is actually pretty fun, that's everything. Yes, it's true, sometime in the summer they will provide an update to allow for leg strap capabilities within soccer matches, and yes, they will add golf in the fall, but wow, who fucking cares? You really think I'm gonna hold out for more shitty leg motion controls in a crappy Rocket League knockoff? You really think I'm gonna wait months just to play another version of golf? As if there aren't already a million other golf games. In fact, I think I might own a few. Stop kidding yourselves, Nintendo. The amount of content here is piss poor, even for a party game. 6 sports is just not enough for a near full price release. They didn't even bring back the stamp system from Wii Sports Resort, which added achievements for some level of replayability. Hell, Matt isn't even in this game. What is going on? This feels very much like what everyone said about 1-2 Switch. It's a fun game with friends, but only for about 2 seconds, and it's definitely not worth $50. Man, I am honestly just super disappointed. This game had every chance to be good, to have loads of sports, each one with a decent amount of depth and variability, with fun achievements and secrets to go for, but no, in reality, it's just kind of boring. Which I would argue is even worse than just being bad. At least a bad game involves some level of intrigue to how wacky it can be, but no, this is just a snooze fest with a handful of interesting moments. I guess the silver lining here is that there are already other good party games on the Switch, so this isn't the only thing we have. But the saddest part is that this probably marks the end of the Wii Sports series, and what a stale way to go out. We deserved better. C tier.